How does wearing the wrong dress to the wrong club become the moment my marriage unravels in public? What began as a secret night out ended with legal papers in my hand, my family divided, and my reputation in tatters. Can I still call myself the victim when the outcome is exactly what I provoked? The red dress hung in our closet like a weapon I'd never had the courage to use. Silk, body-hugging, with a neckline that plunged just deep enough to make Patrick uncomfortable. I'd bought it 2 years ago during a lunch break, telling myself it was for date nights that never came, for romantic dinners that had been replaced by takeout containers and Netflix marathons. "You're not seriously wearing that," Patrick said from the bathroom doorway, toothbrush hanging from his mouth like a cigarette. His reflection in our bedroom mirror looked tired, older than his 36 years. When had those lines around his eyes gotten so deep? I smoothed the fabric over my hips, watching myself transform from Idalia, the office admin, to someone else entirely. Someone who could walk into a room and make heads turn. "What's wrong with it?" He spit into the sink. "Nothing's wrong with it. It's just, where exactly are you going with Lila again?" "Dinner, maybe a movie." The lie came so easily it scared me, but Patrick had stopped really listening to me months ago anyway. When was the last time he'd looked at me the way he used to? When was the last time he'd touched me without it feeling like an obligation? "In that dress?" "What's that supposed to mean?" I turned to face him, letting irritation creep into my voice. It was easier than admitting he was right. The dress wasn't for dinner with my sister. It wasn't for anywhere respectable. Patrick held up his hands in surrender. "Nothing. Forget I said anything. Have fun with Lila." But his tone said everything. That flat, dismissive way he'd been talking to me for months. Like I was furniture. Like I was invisible. My phone buzzed. A text from Lila. "Are you sure about this?" I don't like lying to Patrick. I typed back quickly. "It's not lying. It's just not telling him everything. Cover for me if he calls." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. "Fine. But I don't feel good about this." Neither did I. But that was exactly the point. I was tired of feeling good. Tired of being responsible Idalia, who paid bills on time and remembered parent-teacher conferences and never did anything spontaneous. I wanted to feel dangerous again. Wanted to remember what it was like when men looked at me and saw something worth wanting. Patrick emerged from the bathroom in his usual uniform of khakis and a button-down shirt. Even on weekends, he dressed like he was heading to his high school classroom. Safe, predictable, boring. "You look nice," I offered, though he looked exactly the same as always. "Thanks." He didn't return the compliment. Didn't even really look at me as he grabbed his wallet from the dresser. "I'll probably just grade papers tonight. Maybe watch the game." Of course he would, just like every other Saturday night for the past year. When had we stopped being a couple and started being roommates? "Where's Emily?" I asked, suddenly remembering our 7-year-old daughter. "Sleepover at Jessica's, remember? You signed the permission slip yesterday." "Right. Perfect timing, actually. No need to explain Mommy's outfit to curious little eyes." I grabbed my purse, checking my reflection one more time. The woman in the mirror looked like someone who had secrets. Someone who lived dangerously. I liked her. "Don't wait up," I said, kissing Patrick's cheek. He smelled like the same soap he'd been using for 10 years. "I won't." The words stung more than they should have. Once upon a time, he would have waited up. Would have wanted to hear about my night, would have been interested in peeling me out of this dress. Now he couldn't even be bothered to pretend he cared where I was going. Onyx nightclub was everything our marriage wasn't. Dark, exciting, full of possibility. The bass line thrummed through the floor and into my bones as I walked in, feeling the weight of male attention like a physical thing. It had been so long since men looked at me like this, like I was something to be conquered. The bartender was young, maybe 25, with arms that suggested he spent his days off at the gym. "What can I get you, beautiful?" Beautiful. When was the last time Patrick had called me beautiful? Cosmopolitan, I said, leaning against the bar, just enough to let the dress do its work. Coming right up. His eyes lingered on my neckline just long enough to make me feel powerful again. I found a spot near the dance floor and watched the crowd. Couples grinding against each other, groups of women celebrating something, men prowling the edges like predators. This was what I'd been missing, this energy, this possibility that anything could happen. You look like you're waiting for someone. I turned to find a man beside me, tall and lean with dark hair and the kind of smile that probably got him in trouble. He was holding 2 drinks. Maybe I am, I said, accepting the martini he offered. Maybe I'm waiting for you. His laugh was rich and warm. I'm Marcus, and you are definitely not from around here. What makes you say that? Because if you lived in this neighborhood, I would have noticed you before tonight. It was a line, obviously, but it had been so long since anyone had bothered with lines, with the dance of flirtation, with making me feel like I was worth the effort. I'm Idalia. I didn't mention the last name. Didn't mention the husband or the daughter or the mortgage payment due next week. Dance with me, Idalia. The music was loud enough that we had to stand close to hear each other. His hand found the small of my back as he led me onto the dance floor, and I let him pull me closer than I should have allowed. Let his breath warm my ear as he whispered compliments I hadn't heard in years. This was what I'd come for, this feeling of being desired, of being the center of someone's attention. Marcus moved against me like he meant it, like every touch was intentional. His hand stayed respectful mostly, but there was promise in the way he looked at me. You're married, he said, noticing my ring. Technically. The word slipped out before I could stop it. Ah. His smile turned knowing. One of those marriages. I didn't ask what he meant. I knew. We danced through 3 songs, and I felt more alive than I had in months. This was who I used to be, before responsibilities and routines had ground me down into someone I barely recognized. This was the woman Patrick had fallen in love with, before he'd started taking me for granted. Want to get some air? Marcus asked, his hand sliding down to rest just above the curve of my hip. I should have said no, should have thanked him for the dance and gone home to my husband and my ordinary life. Instead, I found myself nodding, letting him guide me toward the back exit. The cool night air hit my overheated skin like a shock. We were in an alley behind the club, the music muffled, but still pulsing through the walls. Marcus backed me against the brick wall, not aggressively, but with clear intent. You're beautiful, he said, and the way he said it made me believe him. Your husband's an idiot for letting you out alone looking like this. Maybe I didn't give him a choice. Marcus's hands found my waist, his thumbs tracing small circles against the silk. Maybe you're exactly where you're supposed to be. He leaned in, and for a moment I thought he was going to kiss me. Part of me wanted him to. Part of me wanted to cross that final line, to do something that would prove I still existed as more than just Patrick's wife and Emily's mother. But my phone buzzed, breaking the spell. A text from Lila. Patrick called. I told him you were in the bathroom. Please be careful. Reality crashed back over me like cold water. What was I doing? What was I risking? I have to go, I said, pushing gently against Marcus's chest. Already? The night's just getting started. I'm sorry. This was... Thank you for making me feel... I couldn't finish the sentence. Like a woman, he supplied, stepping back with a knowing smile. Yeah, like a woman. I hurried back through the club, grabbing my purse from where I'd left it at our table. The bartender waved goodbye, and several men turned to watch me leave. I felt their eyes like a physical caress, storing up the feeling to sustain me through another week of Patrick's indifference. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and guilt. What had I almost done? What had I wanted to do? The questions chased themselves around my head as I pulled into our driveway. The house was dark except for the blue glow of the television in the living room. Patrick had fallen asleep on the couch, papers scattered around him like always. I stood in the doorway watching him sleep. This man who had once made my heart race, who now barely made it skip. I changed out of the red dress carefully, hanging it back in the closet where it belonged. In my pajamas, I looked like myself again. Ordinary Idalia, safe Idalia, invisible Idalia. But as I brushed my teeth, I could still smell Marcus's cologne on my skin, could still feel the echo of his hands on my waist, the promise in his touch. For one night, I had been someone worth wanting again. I slipped into bed beside my sleeping husband, careful not to wake him. Tomorrow, I would go back to being the woman he'd stopped seeing. But tonight, I had been alive. I had no idea that across town, Patrick's best friend Tom was scrolling through the photos on his phone, debating whether to delete the one he'd taken at Onyx, the one of me pressed against Marcus on the dance floor, my face clearly visible, my wedding ring catching the club lights like an accusation. I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Patrick moving around the kitchen. For a moment, I felt normal. Just another Sunday morning in the Rowan household. Then the memories of last night came flooding back, and my stomach clenched with guilt and something else I didn't want to examine too closely. The red dress was still hanging in the closet, innocent as a sleeping snake. I could smell the club on it, cigarettes and perfume and possibility. I should probably wash it, or better yet, return it to whatever fantasy I'd been living when I bought it. "Morning," Patrick said when I appeared in the kitchen. He didn't look up from his newspaper. "Morning." I poured myself coffee, my hand steady despite the chaos in my head. "How was your night?" "Fine. Graded papers, watched the game." He turned a page with more force than necessary. "How was dinner with Lila?" The question sounded casual, but something in his tone made me look at him more carefully. He was still staring at the newspaper, but I could see tension in the set of his shoulders. "It was good. We went to that new Italian place downtown." The lie came easier this time, details filling in automatically. "The one she's been wanting to try." Patrick folded the newspaper and finally looked at me. His eyes were different this morning, sharper. "Must have been a long dinner." "We talked a lot. You know how sisters are." I busied myself making toast, avoiding his gaze. "Girl talk and all that." "Right, girl talk." There was definitely something wrong. Patrick was never this focused in the morning. Usually he was buried in lesson plans or sports scores, barely acknowledging my existence. This felt like an interrogation. My phone buzzed. A text from Lila. "We need to talk. Now." I typed back, "Can't talk now, Patrick's here." "Then get away from Patrick. This is important." A chill ran down my spine. "What's wrong?" "Just call me when you're alone." Patrick was watching me text, and I realized how suspicious it must look. "Lila wants to grab coffee later," I said, slipping the phone into my robe pocket. "She probably wants to rehash the whole night." "I'm sure she does." Patrick stood up, rinsing his mug in the sink. "I'm going to run some errands. Maybe stop by Tom's." Tom, Patrick's best friend since college, the one who never quite approved of me. They played basketball together on weekends and complained about their jobs over beer. Why did the mention of his name make my stomach drop? "Okay, I'll probably go meet Lila then." Patrick nodded, but he was looking at me like he was seeing someone he didn't recognize. "Idalia?" "Yeah?" "That dress you wore last night, the red one. Where did you say you got it?" My mouth went dry. "I don't remember. Some department store, probably. Why?" "Just curious. It looked expensive." "It wasn't that expensive." Another lie. It had been $300 I couldn't really afford, charged to a credit card I'd been hiding from Patrick. "Why are you asking about my dress?" Patrick shrugged. "No reason. I'll see you later." He left without kissing me goodbye, which should have been a relief. Instead, it felt ominous. The moment I heard his car pull out of the driveway, I called Lila. "Thank God," she said before I could even say hello. "Idalia, what the hell did you do last night?" "What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb with me. Tom saw you." The world tilted sideways. "Tom saw me where?" "At Onyx, dancing with some guy. He took pictures, Idalia. Pictures." I sank onto the couch, my legs suddenly unable to support me. "Pictures of what?" "Of you in that red dress, pressed up against some stranger on the dance floor. He said you looked intimate." "It wasn't intimate. We were just dancing." But even as I said it, I knew how it must have looked. Marcus's hands on my waist, my body pressed against his, the way I'd looked at him, like he was everything I'd been missing. "Tom showed Patrick this morning." The words hit me like a physical blow. "He what?" "He went over there an hour ago, said he couldn't keep it to himself, said Patrick deserved to know." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. "What did Patrick say?" "I don't know. Tom just called me to warn me that Patrick might be calling to verify your story. He wanted me to know that the cover was blown." Oh God, Lila, what am I going to do?" "You're going to tell me the truth, all of it. Did you sleep with this guy?" "No, I swear, we just danced and talked, and—" I remembered Marcus's hands on my waist, the way he'd backed me against the wall in the alley, how close I'd come to letting him kiss me. Nothing happened, but something almost happened. I couldn't deny it. "Yes." Lila was quiet for a long moment. "Idalia, I love you, but you are so stupid sometimes. What were you thinking?" "I was thinking that my husband hasn't touched me in 3 months. I was thinking that he looks right through me like I don't exist. I was thinking that maybe I deserve to feel wanted again." "So you decided to feel wanted by some random guy at a club?" "It wasn't supposed to go that far. I just wanted to dance, to feel alive again." "Well, congratulations. You're about to feel very alive when Patrick gets home." The front door slammed and I heard Patrick's footsteps in the hallway. "He's here," I whispered. "Good luck," Lila said and hung up. Patrick appeared in the living room doorway, and I knew immediately that everything had changed. His face was pale, except for 2 spots of red on his cheeks, and his hands were clenched into fists at his sides. "We need to talk," he said. I set my phone down carefully, like it might explode. "Okay." He pulled out his own phone, swiped a few times, then held it out to me. "Can you explain this?" The photo was worse than I'd imagined. Tom had caught me and Marcus in perfect profile, my face clearly visible, my body language unmistakably intimate. Marcus's hand was on the small of my back, my hand was on his chest, and we were looking at each other like we were the only 2 people in the world. I was wearing my wedding ring in the photo. The diamond caught the club lights like a tiny spotlight, making my betrayal impossible to ignore. "Patrick, I can explain." "Can you?" His voice was deadly quiet. "Because it looks to me like my wife was at a nightclub last night, dancing with another man, while she told me she was having dinner with her sister." "It's not what it looks like." "It looks like you lied to me. It looks like you put on that dress I said was inappropriate and went out looking for attention from other men. It looks like you found what you were looking for." I had never heard Patrick speak to me like this. In 10 years of marriage, he had never raised his voice, never been cruel, never looked at me with such cold disappointment. "I didn't sleep with him," I said desperately. "I didn't even kiss him." "Oh, well then, I guess that makes it okay." The sarcasm in his voice was like a slap. "I guess that makes the lying and the sneaking around and the—" He gestured at the phone. "Whatever this is, perfectly acceptable." "Patrick, please, let me explain." "Explain what? That you're so unhappy in our marriage that you have to go out and find validation from strangers? That you're so bored with me that you need to dress up like you're single and go dancing with other men?" The words were like arrows, each one finding its mark. "It wasn't about you." "Bullshit." The profanity shocked me. Patrick never swore. "This is absolutely about me, about us. About the fact that you've been lying to my face and I've been too stupid to see it. I haven't been lying. You lied last night. You've probably been lying for weeks, months. How long has this been going on, Idalia? How long have you been sneaking around behind my back? This was the first time, I swear. The first time you got caught, you mean? I stared at him, this stranger wearing my husband's face. Where was the gentle man who brought me coffee in bed on Sunday mornings? Where was the patient teacher who helped Emily with her homework every night? I don't know who you are anymore, he said, and his voice was so quiet I had to strain to hear him. I don't know if I ever knew you. Patrick, please, we can work through this. It was a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill or leaving the milk out overnight. This. He looked at the photo again, and I saw something die in his eyes. This was a choice, a series of choices. You chose to lie to me. You chose to put on that dress and go to that club. You chose to dance with that man. He was right, and we both knew it. Every step of last night had been a deliberate decision to betray everything we'd built together. I'm sorry, I whispered. So am I. Patrick pocketed his phone and walked toward the stairs. I'm going to pack a bag. I'll be staying at Tom's for a while. You're leaving me. He paused at the bottom of the stairs. You left me first, Idalia. Last night in that club you left me. I'm just making it official. I watched him climb the stairs, each step taking him further away from me, from us, from the life we'd built together. And all I could think about was Marcus's hands on my waist and how alive I'd felt in those moments before everything fell apart. The coffee shop on 5th Street had always been our place, mine and Lila's. We'd been coming here since college, through boyfriends and breakups, through my wedding and Emily's birth, through every crisis and celebration of the past decade. Now it felt like enemy territory. Lila was already there when I arrived Monday morning, hunched over her laptop at our usual table by the window. She looked up when I approached, and I could see the guilt written all over her face. Don't look at me like that, I said, sliding into the chair across from her. Like what? Like I'm some kind of criminal. Lila closed her laptop slowly. Idalia, you asked me to lie to your husband so you could go pick up men at a nightclub. How exactly should I look at you? The words stung because they were true. I didn't pick up anyone. I danced with someone. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you blew up your marriage for one dance with a stranger. I ordered a latte from the barista who'd been serving us for years, pretending everything was normal. Pretending my husband hadn't spent the night at his friend's house. Pretending my 7-year-old daughter hadn't asked this morning why Daddy wasn't at breakfast. Patrick will come around, I said when the barista was gone. He's hurt right now, but he'll realize he's overreacting. Lila stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Overreacting? Idalia, you cheated on him. I didn't cheat. I danced with someone. You lied to him, snuck out to a club and got physically intimate with another man. In what universe is that not cheating? We didn't have sex. Oh my God. Lila rubbed her temples like she was getting a headache. Do you hear yourself right now? You're sitting here splitting hairs about the definition of cheating instead of taking responsibility for what you did. What I did was dance with someone who made me feel attractive for the first time in months. What I did was remember what it feels like to be desired instead of ignored. So this is Patrick's fault. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. You've been saying it since you sat down. Poor Idalia, neglected by her husband, forced to seek attention from strangers. The accusation hit too close to home. You don't understand what it's like, Lila. You're single. You can go out whenever you want, sleep with whoever you want. You don't know what it's like to be invisible in your own marriage. You're right, I don't. But I know what it's like to watch my sister destroy her family because she's too selfish to work on her problems like an adult. Selfish? The word came out louder than I intended, and several other customers turned to look at us. I'm selfish for wanting my husband to notice me. You're selfish for handling it this way. Did you try talking to Patrick about how you were feeling? Did you suggest counseling? Did you make any effort to fix your marriage before you decided to go looking for validation somewhere else? I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it again. The truth was, I hadn't tried any of those things. I'd been so caught up in feeling sorry for myself that I'd never considered actually addressing the problem. It's not that simple, I said finally. It is that simple, you just don't want to admit it. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Saw the photos. Guess Patrick wasn't enough for you after all. My blood turned to ice. Lila, who else has seen the pictures? She looked uncomfortable. Tom showed a few people, I think. You know how guys are when they get together. What people? I don't know. Some of the guys from their basketball league, maybe. Why? I showed her the text. Her face went pale. Oh, shit. Yeah. Oh, shit. I scrolled through my messages. 3 more from numbers I didn't recognize, all variations of the same theme. The photos were spreading. Maybe it'll blow over, Lila said, but she didn't sound convinced. Will you listen to yourself? This isn't going to blow over. This is going to follow me around forever. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you... Before I what? Before I tried to feel human again. Before I reminded myself that I'm more than just a wife and mother. Before you betrayed your husband and humiliated your family. The words hung between us like a wall. I stared at my sister, this person who was supposed to support me unconditionally, and saw judgment in her eyes. I need you to back me up here, I said. I need you to tell people that it wasn't as bad as it looked. I can't do that. Why not? Because it was as bad as it looked. Maybe worse. I felt something crack inside my chest. You're my sister. Which is why I'm telling you the truth instead of enabling your delusions. You screwed up, Idalia. Badly. And instead of owning it and trying to fix it, you're sitting here asking me to help you cover it up. I'm asking you to help me save my marriage. Your marriage is in trouble because of what you did, not because of what people are saying about it. If you want to save it, you need to take responsibility and make amends, not spin the story to make yourself look better. My phone rang. Patrick's name on the screen. Answer it, Lila said. Patrick? I tried to sound normal, like my world wasn't falling apart. We need to talk. Can you meet me at the house in an hour? Of course. Are you coming home? I'm coming to get some things. We'll talk then. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, trying to process what I'd just heard. He's coming to get some things, I told Lila. That's not good. No, it's not. I stood up, leaving my untouched latte on the table. I have to go. Idalia, wait. Lila caught my arm. I know you don't want to hear this, but you need to apologize. Really apologize. Not one of your half apologies where you blame everyone else for misunderstanding you. Take responsibility and mean it. I pulled away from her. Thanks for the advice, and thanks for all the support. I am supporting you. I'm trying to help you see. But I was already walking away, past the other customers who were probably judging me, past the barista who was definitely listening to our conversation, out into the street where at least the strangers didn't know what I'd done. The drive home was a blur of panic and preparation. What would I say to Patrick? How could I make him understand that Saturday night had been about feeling alive, not about betraying him? How could I explain that Marcus had meant nothing, that he'd just been a mirror reflecting back the woman I used to be? Patrick's car was already in the driveway when I got home. I found him in our bedroom, methodically packing clothes into a suitcase. You don't have to do this, I said from the doorway. He didn't look up. Yes, I do. We can work through this. Couples therapy or... Idalia. He finally met my eyes, and I saw something there I'd never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, indifference. I've been thinking about this all night, about us, about what's been wrong between us. Okay, good. That's what we need to do. Figure out what went wrong and fix it. The thing is, I don't think it can be fixed. I don't think you want it to be fixed. That's not true. You've been unhappy for months. I could see it, even if I didn't want to admit it. The way you looked at me, like I was disappointing you just by existing. The way you rolled your eyes when I talked about work, or turned away when I tried to touch you. His words were like a punch to the stomach because they were accurate. I had been doing all of those things, but I hadn't realized he'd noticed. I was going through a rough patch, and instead of talking to me about it, instead of trying to work on our marriage, you decided to go find what you were missing somewhere else. It wasn't like that. Patrick zipped up the suitcase and set it on the floor. What was it like then? Explain it to me. I searched for words that would make him understand. I felt invisible, like I was just going through the motions of being your wife without actually being seen by you. When was the last time you told me I was beautiful? When was the last time you looked at me like you actually wanted me? So you decided to find someone who would. I decided to remember what it felt like to be desired. By betraying our marriage vows. I didn't sleep with him. You might as well have. Patrick picked up the suitcase. The intent was there. The willingness was there. The only reason you didn't is because you got caught. That's not true, isn't it? If Tom hadn't been there, if you hadn't gotten that text from Lila, would you have come home alone? The question hung in the air between us, and we both knew the answer. I might not have slept with Marcus that night, but I would have wanted to, and wanting to was almost as bad as doing it. I love you, I said desperately. I love our family. I made a mistake, but it doesn't have to end everything. Patrick paused at the bedroom door. The thing is, Idalia, I don't think it was a mistake. I think it was a choice. And I think, given the same circumstances, you'd make the same choice again. I wouldn't. I swear I wouldn't. We'll never know, will we? He left me standing in our bedroom, surrounded by the debris of our marriage. In the closet, the red dress hung like an accusation, a reminder of the woman I'd tried to become and the price I'd paid for the transformation. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Your husband deserves better than a cheating wife. I turned off the phone and crawled into our bed, pulling Patrick's pillow against my chest. It still smelled like him, like the life we'd built together, like everything I'd thrown away for one night of feeling wanted. Outside, I heard Patrick's car pull out of the driveway, taking him away from me and toward a future I couldn't see. And for the first time since Saturday night, I began to understand that some mistakes can't be undone, no matter how sorry you are. By Wednesday, it felt like the entire town was talking about me. I couldn't go to the grocery store without feeling eyes following me down the aisles. I couldn't drop Emily off at school without noticing the way other mothers clustered together, their conversation stopping abruptly when I approached. The photos had spread beyond Patrick's basketball friends. Someone had posted them in a local Facebook group, and from there, they'd taken on a life of their own. Cropped, shared, commented on by people who didn't even know me, but felt qualified to judge my marriage. "Mummy, why is Daddy staying at Uncle Tom's house?" Emily asked over breakfast. She was picking at her cereal, her 7-year-old face creased with worry. "Daddy and I are just taking a little break," I said, the lie tasting bitter in my mouth. Sometimes grown-ups need space to think. "Are you getting divorced like Jessica's parents?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "No, sweetheart, we're just working some things out." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it. Patrick hadn't returned my calls, hadn't answered my texts. The only communication I'd had from him was a brief message saying he'd pick up Emily after school and keep her overnight. My phone buzzed. A notification from Facebook. Someone had tagged me in a comment on one of the photos. Idalia Rowan getting her groove on, while her husband stays home with the kid. Stay classy, Idalia. I deleted the tag and blocked the user, but it was like playing whack-a-mole. For every person I blocked, 2 more seemed to appear with opinions about my marriage, my morals, my fitness as a mother. The worst part was the comments from people I actually knew. Neighbors, acquaintances, parents from Emily's school. People who smiled to my face but apparently had no problem tearing me apart online. Always thought she was stuck up. Guess we know why now. Poor Patrick. He's such a nice guy. He deserves so much better. I feel sorry for their daughter. What kind of example is this setting? That last one made me physically sick. Whatever I'd done to my marriage, Emily didn't deserve to be dragged into it. She didn't deserve to have her mother's mistakes become playground gossip. I was still staring at my phone when it rang. Patrick's mother. "Evelyn," I answered, trying to sound normal. "Don't you Evelyn me, young lady." Her voice was ice cold. "I've seen the pictures." My heart sank. If Patrick's mother had seen them, then everyone had seen them. "I can explain." "Explain what? How you humiliated my son? How you made a mockery of your marriage vows? How you dragged our family name through the mud?" Evelyn Rowan was a formidable woman, under the best of circumstances. A retired school principal with strong opinions about proper behavior and family values. She'd never been particularly warm toward me, but she'd been civil. That civility was apparently over. "It's not as bad as it looks. It looks like you were having an affair." "I wasn't having an affair. I danced with someone, that's all." "While lying to my son about where you were. While dressed like a—" She paused, clearly editing herself. "While dressed inappropriately for a married woman. Evelyn, I made a mistake, but you made a choice, a series of choices, and now my son is sleeping on his friend's couch because he can't bear to look at you." The words were like arrows, each one finding its mark, but underneath the pain was a growing anger. Who was she to judge me? Who was anyone to judge me? "Where I go and what I wear is between me and Patrick," I said. "It's not anyone else's business." "It became everyone's business when you decided to do it in public, when you decided to humiliate your family for the whole town to see." "I didn't mean for anyone to see. But they did see, and now my granddaughter has to deal with the consequences of your selfishness." The mention of Emily was the final straw. "Don't you dare bring Emily into this. You brought her into it the moment you put on that dress and walked out of your house. You brought her into it when you decided your need for attention was more important than your family's reputation." "My family's reputation? What about my reputation? What about the fact that I'm being torn apart online by people who don't know anything about my marriage? Maybe if you'd thought about your reputation before you started grinding on strangers in nightclubs, you wouldn't be in this situation." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, shaking with anger and humiliation. Even Patrick's mother was against me now. Even she thought I was the villain in the story. My own mother called an hour later. "Idalia, honey, what's going on? Lila told me Patrick moved out." Sophia Voss had always been the peacemaker in our family. The one who smoothed over conflicts and found the silver lining in every crisis. Surely she would understand. "Mum, I made a mistake, a stupid mistake, but everyone is acting like I committed murder." "What kind of mistake?" I told her the whole story, or at least my version of it. How neglected I'd felt in my marriage. How invisible I'd become. How I'd just wanted one night to feel attractive again. "Oh, sweetheart," she said when I finished. "What were you thinking?" I was thinking that I deserved to feel wanted. I was thinking that Patrick had stopped seeing me as a woman and started seeing me as just furniture. "So you went looking for attention from other men?" "I went looking for myself, for the woman I used to be before I became just Patrick's wife and Emily's mother." There was a long pause. "Idalia, I understand feeling lost in your roles. I really do. But there were other ways to handle this. You could have talked to Patrick. You could have gone to counseling. I could have done a lot of things differently, but I didn't. And now everyone is treating me like I'm some kind of monster. People are talking because you're a public figure in a small town. Patrick's a teacher. You're involved in school activities. People know you. So that means they get to judge me. It means your actions have consequences beyond just your marriage." Another person telling me about consequences. Another person acting like I didn't understand what I'd done. "I thought you'd be on my side," I said. "I am on your side. But being on your side doesn't mean pretending you didn't make a serious error in judgment." Error in judgment. Is that what we're calling it? What would you call it? I didn't have an answer for that. What would I call it? A mistake, a moment of weakness, a cry for help that no one had heard until it was too late. "I have to go," I said. "Emily will be home soon." "Idalia, wait. Have you apologized to Patrick? Really apologized?" "Of course I have. I mean really apologized. Not explained or justified or minimized. Actually taken responsibility and asked for forgiveness." Had I? Or had I spent all my time trying to make Patrick understand why I'd done what I'd done, instead of simply acknowledging that I'd hurt him? "I'll talk to you later, Mum." I hung up and sat in my empty kitchen, surrounded by the silence of my fractured family. Even my own mother thought I was wrong. Even she couldn't see past the surface to understand the pain that had driven me to that club. My laptop was open on the counter, Facebook still displaying the comments that kept multiplying like a virus. I scrolled through them, each one a fresh wound. "Saw her at the grocery store yesterday. Couldn't even look me in the eye." I heard Patrick's filing for divorce. Those poor kids at his school. Imagine having to face your students after your wife does something like this. That last comment stopped me cold. I hadn't thought about Patrick's job, about how this might affect his career. He taught high school math, worked with teenagers who probably had access to the same photos everyone else was sharing. How was he supposed to maintain authority in his classroom when his personal life had become a public spectacle? For the first time since Saturday night, I began to understand the full scope of what I'd done. It wasn't just about me and Patrick anymore. It wasn't just about our marriage or our family. It was about his reputation, his career, his ability to do the job he loved. I closed the laptop and walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood where we'd built our life together, the houses where our friends lived, the streets where Emily rode her bike, the community that had embraced us as a young couple full of promise. Now I was the cautionary tale, the woman who'd had everything and thrown it away for one night of feeling special. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Lila. "I'm coming over," she said without preamble. "I don't want company." "Too bad. You need someone to talk sense into you before you make this worse." "How could I possibly make this worse?" "Trust me, you'll find a way. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up before I could argue. I looked around the house, at the family photos on the mantel, at Emily's artwork covering the refrigerator, at all the evidence of the life I'd built and was now in danger of losing. Outside, a car drove slowly past our house, the occupants craning their necks to get a look at the home of the infamous Idalia Rowan. I stepped back from the window, suddenly understanding what it meant to be the subject of small-town gossip. I was no longer a person. I was a story, a scandal, a warning to other wives about what happened when you forgot your place. And the worst part was, I was starting to wonder if they were right. The separation papers arrived Friday, custody arrangements, asset division, everything final. Patrick's lawyer called about splitting time with Emily. My supervisor emailed about concerns regarding my behavior. Leela confronted me with groceries and hard truths. "You've spent the week making excuses," she said, scanning the papers. "These terms are fair. He could have asked for full custody. He's destroying our family over one mistake. One mistake? You made deliberate choices. I can't keep defending someone who won't admit what they did wrong." After she left, I found Emily's drawing. My happy family. I called Patrick's voicemail, finally honest. "I'm sorry I hurt you, betrayed your trust, was too selfish to fight for our marriage. You deserved better." I threw out the red dress, understanding too late. Some mistakes can't be fixed. I'd wanted one night of feeling special and lost everything that mattered. My supervisor fired me. The viral photos hurt the company's reputation. I cleaned out my desk by noon. At Emily's school, I begged Patrick to reconsider. "It's over," he said gently. "You became invisible to me, you stopped seeing me first." That weekend, a reporter appeared at my door. Strangers sent hateful messages. The house felt like a tomb. When Patrick returned Emily Sunday, I confessed I'd lost my job. "It's all fair," I admitted. "I did this to myself." Tucking Emily in, she asked, "Maybe if you say sorry, Daddy will come home." If only it were that simple. Patrick texted, "Papers finalized next week." I was happy, I whispered. I just didn't know it until it was gone.